Hey guys, welcome back to the Bry-Fy podcast. I'm your host, Bry-Fy, the comics guy, and welcome back to another episode. What is this, episode 280? 281? I don't remember, but it's really high up there. We're getting close to 300. Something special's got to happen for that, right? I don't know. We'll find out. I'll think of something. Anyway, this episode is brought to you by Comicpalooza, coming this weekend, May 10th through the 12th, downtown Houston at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Those of you on YouTube may have noticed I have something weird in front of me. Those of you who pay attention on my social media and on Patreon know that this thing is the part of my portable recording booth that I made with a storage tub and that like bed liner stuff that you can lay on top of your beds for soft. It helps cut down some of the echo. Although those of you on YouTube, I don't have one for my little mic over here, so you get all the echo. But those of you on the podcast portion, listening on like Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Podcoin, Spotify, all there, you're going to hear a more improved, better quality sound than those of you on YouTube. So sorry, but maybe you should just go listen to the regular podcast. But you get some cool stuff, visually, when you watch over on YouTube. Anyway, this episode is brought to you by Comicpalooza. Like I said, this weekend, May 10th through 12th, I'm going to be really busy. I got 3 panels on Friday at 11 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m., and they're going to be some really good stuff. One, I'm working with Tyler Kirkholm and Jay Lee, and they're going to talk about what it's like to work for the big two, Marvel and DC. The other one is how to read your writer. It's a good one for artists trying to decipher their writers' scripts. That's going to be with Isaac Goodhart and Jamal Eagle. And then the last one I have for Friday is my own podcast, podcasting live on the convention floor. That's going to be a lot of fun. Stick to my social media to find out when and where those are going to be. As a reminder, Saturday I only got one. That's going to be a Q&A with Dan Jurgens, great Superman writer. That's going to be at 10:30 a.m. And then on Sunday I am doing my own panel, which is podcasting for one, how to host a solo podcast, and that's going to be at noon. So definitely don't want to miss any of that. Anyway, let's get on with the nifty nerd news that I had for you guys this week, starting with Suicide Squad news because I just can't quit it. It's like I'm addicted to the crap. James Gunn is bringing an Ant-Man, not the Ant-Man, but a character from Ant-Man to the Suicide Squad movie as one of the anti-hero villain, whatever. The guy's name is David Malchain, or That's My Chain, whatever you want to call him. He's also been in the Dark Knight series before. He's like the Russian dude from Ant-Man who, what was it, in the second one, talks about the witch, Yaba Baba, or whatever her name is. Really funny guy. He's been in a couple comic book movies, which is really cool. And looks like he's being cast to play Polka Dot Man, whoever the hell that is. But it looks really fun. He seems to be a real big fan of comic book movies. And he, like I said, he was really funny. If James Gunn is a fan of him, I'm a fan of him. I'm just saying. In fact, it'd be really funny to see just more Marvel people just, heading over there. Like, you have some characters from Avengers Endgame that, without spoiling it, not everyone makes it. We'll just say that. And so, they're going to have a free schedule coming up. Maybe they could be in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Just saying. That's pretty, I thought that was pretty neat, and I thought I'd bring it up just because we always seem to talk. Well, I should just change my podcast to the Suicide Squad podcast because that's kind of how things are going. Other news. So the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer came out recently, like I think 4 to 5 days ago, like after I recorded last podcast, but before I recorded this one. Within that time, we got to see our first look at Sonic in the movie and how horribly hideous he was, and just it was bad. It just did not look how I would have pictured Sonic the Hedgehog, but it was their vision. This thing that Paramount Pictures decided to create, which they call Sonic, was their vision, and we have to respect that. But let's face it, no one in their right mind did. Just the internet did an internet thing, and they lashed out viciously on this new Sonic, hard enough so that Paramount has decided they're going to step back a little bit and redesign or make changes to their Sonic character to, in hopes, make him look more Sonic-y and less an abomination. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But the other thing about this is, like, it's a double-edged sword. So, like, yes, you're getting the good. Like, people wanted to change, and I agree. It looked like hot garbage. Let's not sugarcoat that. This Sonic looked disgusting. There was one moment in that trailer where I was like, "This is cool," and that's when Sonic does his little spin thing and takes out a vehicle. That was pretty sweet. That was Sonic. I looked at that and I was like, "That's Sonic the Hedgehog. That's what I want more of in this movie." But we get weird human teeth Sonic, which looks really creepy, and a lot of people didn't like that. The other part about this is if they make these changes, that's extra work on all the artists and all like the CGI people who did work on that. It means they're probably pulling overtime because they don't just sit around and only do one job and then they're done forever. They're probably working on other things. So now they gotta either get these people, force them to work overtime to fix this character, or hire a whole new art team to come in and do that, which hasn't been working on the character at all and has to get all this stuff. So basically what's going to happen is it's just one huge cluster crap of just everything bad. And that's what you people wanted. And I mean, I get it, I get seeing something and it looking absolutely hideous, but at the same time, I still look at these things now. They're not written for us. These movies aren't made for us. Yes, we love the character, and yes, we want them to be about us, but at the end of the day, Sonic the Hedgehog is probably going to be a cartoon movie for kids, Detective Pikachu is a movie that's for kids, but it still hits those notes and looks good for those of us who are older who loved the series growing up. So it's like you have to, at some point, us as an audience have to understand these things aren't always going to be for us, and they're meant for a new generation of kids to get into a new generation of movies and a new generation of games. But at the same time, I think movie companies need to understand, like, everyone's going to go watch them. People are going to expect a certain thing. And when you've had a character like Sonic, who's mostly been unchanged since his inception, it's probably not a great idea to make changes to him now. So yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. And the last bit of nifty nerd news is actually some nifty nerd sci-fi tech news. And that has to come with the New York Police Department, their division, and how they started doing training. A video I came across on Reddit, but I looked into it and it's actually really cool. So the NYPD is using virtual reality training sessions. They're hooking their police force up with like VR suits and outfitting them with laser airsoft guns. I think they said they're using airsoft guns or guns that have like realistic kickback to them or simulated kickback. I mean, obviously it's not going to be like shooting a real gun for anyone who's shot a real gun versus shooting like an airsoft pistol or something like that. But it's going to give enough of a real life feel with the virtual reality to make it feel like they're in these actual situations. And why is this a good thing? Well, it's because now you can train for things that are really hard to train in normal training environments. You can do active shooter trainings. You can do like clearing school buildings. Like you can do all these really in-depth scenarios now with AI villains or real people as villains and like AI hostages and stuff like that. So it gives a sense of you're in the real world. They use like this huge warehouse that's all emptied out. You have like these fake walls and stuff, and they use them to, practice, their breaching techniques, like friendly fires type situation, or like, targets of fire, range finding, those kind of stuff. And to me, it's awesome. It's amazing to be able to use virtual reality to be able to train dangerous situations in a safe environment. And hopefully that training in those type of environments will, when the situation comes up in real life, they'll be more prepared for it. It's something that I would love to see a lot of places do, a lot more police departments do, because I think this technology could really save lives. I think virtual reality is going to be a really big deal, a huge deal. We're still we're still just on the top of things, brushing the surface, scratching the surface. Really, that's the phrase I'm looking for, of virtual reality and the things that we can do with it. But we're finally starting to get into what we can accomplish with virtual reality. And I thought this virtual reality training thing would be really cool. And you can do that with so many other things, you know, with like driving situation, you know, like Crazy Taxi. No, but like what driving things, like dangerous tasks that you need to train for and be ready to perform. Maybe you can use virtual reality to actually train for those. So when you get into the real shit of it all, you're ready to go. You're prepared for it. And I thought that was just really cool, really nifty, and I wanted to share that with you guys. But anyway, that's really all that I have for you guys for this week in the Nifty Nerd News. Like I said, we're going to be looking at some Marvel comics that Dan Jurgens wrote over there, and that's going to be for the comic book review portion of the podcast. So stick around for that. Like I said, you can always listen to it on Podbean, SoundCloud, or not SoundCloud, I always say that, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Podcoin, Google Play, and just anywhere else that you can really listen to podcasts, mainly Apple Podcasts, because that's where I got my start, guys. Anyway, that's going to be it for the Bry-Fy podcast on YouTube. Head on over, or we're going to take a break and get into the comic book review portion of the show.